Hello, welcome to What the Flick. We are kicking off our Sunday shoes to talk about Footloose. You're going to be shocked, I say, at our opinions on Footloose. This is Matt Atchity. This is Alonso Duralde. I'm still Christy Lemire. I have to comment on my shirt. I realize it's going to be moot by the time the show airs, but I want to be on record as saying, go Justin Verlander. Keep the series going. Hopefully it will. I'm sure it's totally irrelevant. You care?
They're doing well.
They're not. They're down 3-1. So we're talking about Footloose, and we're so excited we couldn't even decide who was going to describe it to you.
I will let you if you want to.
Okay. It's all you. Go ahead,
So
please.
Footloose is a remake of the 1984 film that starred Kevin Bacon. We've got a new cast, slightly changed story. It was This one's directed by Craig Brewer, who brought us the great Hustle and Flow.
And the very good Black Snake Moan.
And the very good Black Snake Moan.
Yes.
This movie is about a kid that ends up in a small town, Beaumont, where there is no dancing. No dancing.
Or fun in any way.
Or fun. No fun in any way. No drinking, no dancing, no smoking.
No fun.
No fun.
It's like that Village in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang where they made all the children go away.
Exactly. So let's watch the trailer.
Mama, it's Ren. He's here.
Hey, girls. I appreciate you taking me in. I really want to pull my own weight around here.
He's cute. You think everybody's cute.
Hey, watch where you're going, little guy.
Sorry, man, I didn't see it.
Where are you from? You talk funny.
I talk funny?
Mm-hmm.
You should hit you from my end.
What's up, man? I'm Willard.
I'm Ren MacCormack. What's the deal with the preacher's daughter?
You think I'm small town, huh?
Is she worth all that attitude?
You want to see something?
First sign of the police, and I'ma pull the plug.
What, you can't keep up?
I take my feet off the ground.
3 years ago.
5 seniors died in a car crash coming home from a dance, and that's when the whole town went crazy.
You want to go out and get some cheap thrills, you do it outside of Beaumont.
Thinking I could do something. Maybe have a shot at making a change.
I don't want you to see that boy.
Why?
Because I've heard he's trouble.
Watch that attitude, son.
We speak for this town because we are from here.
I know you gotta do what you gotta do, but that ain't gonna stop it from happening. There was once a time for that law, but not anymore. This is our time.
As you can tell, Craig Brewer is definitely a fan of the original Footloose. He's actually said that this is the movie that made him want to be a filmmaker. And you can see, totally, not Citizen Kane or Casablanca, Footloose.
Why not?
And you can tell.
I can kind of see that because he made this one better.
It is better.
I'm going to give it away.
Please do, go.
No, wait, did you see the original? Because you had it before.
I did see the original this week.
Okay.
Oh, you had not seen it. This was not a formative thing for you the way it was for everybody else in the 80s.
He fixed that movie.
Yeah.
He did, and I can see, from the standpoint, that's the movie that I want to be a director because I'll fix it. That's what he's done, and it's really impressive.
So how is it better? How is it different?
I think the story is tighter, and I found myself buying into the story a lot more. Like in the original, you don't find out about the accident till much later.
Right.
The big change here is that the lethal accident that was the cause of all of this happens right at the beginning, and it puts you on this emotional journey with the kid and with the town. Actually, it kind of makes you like when they're having the meeting early on. When they're having the town council meeting and they vote down things that would make sense. No drinking, curfew.
Yeah.
Like I could kind of see all that. And when they throw no dancing in there, it's like I could kind of buy that would happen. I wouldn't necessarily agree with it.
In a small conservative
town, but in a small conservative town. Now that I'm a stepfather, like the kind of laws that we passed to protect children out of grief after an accident like that, all very understandable. And so when the new kid comes in town and comes up against that, it made it a much richer emotional journey for me, which I realize we're talking about Footloose here.
No, but there is a lot more realism to Craig Brewer's version in that it is less earnest. It's grittier and sexier and dirtier and steamier.
Having the lead guy's mother be dead definitely gives him something more to play, gives him more of a motivation to do this.
A loneliness that he needs to reach out.
And gives him a way to connect with the preacher eventually because they both had loss. And I know, again, we're talking about Footloose.
The intricacies of
But it's actually,
but
this movie is good, all right? This is the crazy thing. Nobody walked into this movie thinking, oh, great, they're remaking Footloose. Footloose, and it's really good.
But quite the opposite. Not only did they not walk in going, great, they're remaking Footloose, people were like vehemently
like, how dare they remake Footloose? Or why bother remaking Footloose?
Yeah, and I think, and I wrote a whole essay about this, like why are we so viscerally opposed to the idea of a Footloose remake? And it's because it was part of our formative years. If you grew up in the 80s and you don't want your memories touched or sullied or anything.
When they make a remake, they go into the archive and burn all the copies of the original movie, so you can never see it again.
Yeah, it's funny. And if you follow Craig Brewer on Twitter, he is my BrewTube on Twitter, but he's totally messing with all of the naysayers and having fun with them and retweeting when they're like, Footloose is gonna suck, don't go see it. Like people who haven't even seen it are of course already condemning it, but he's messing with them.
People
it's fun.
are like on Dave's Facebook wall, people are vehement about like when he said that he liked it. Are you crazy? What have you done? You know, but and look, I was 17 when Footloose came out. I was working in a movie theater in high school. I saw it umpteen times. It's not a movie that I ever could defend, but I always liked it. I always liked the songs. You know, there's a lot of fun stuff in it. And so yeah, I kind of went into this one with a bit of a harumph, like, why are you doing this? And what's the point? It's not going to be as good. And oh, holy crap, this movie is such fun from start to finish. And it's a good dance movie. It's a fun teen movie. It just works. Like the performances are good. It's a
well-made movie. My thought on this, and this is going to sound really weird, my reaction when I first saw Batman Begins, when I came out of that, it was like, oh my God, somebody made a real movie out of a superhero character. And that's kind of how I felt here. It's like, somebody made a real movie out of a dance story.
Out of a dance movie. And ordinarily there's like a lot of choreography and like a lot of like quick cuts, but there's an actual story here. And also, you mentioned that it's a good teen movie. Craig Brewer was intuitive enough to keep the element that is universal in both films, which is like that sense of teenage rebellion. And that sense that you are like no adult, especially not your parents, and no one's going to tell you what you can and cannot do. And you're going to rise up and you're going to rebel and you're going to have fun and do it in song.
Now there
and fall in love maybe too, but yeah, that element is definitely key.
I did think there were some silly points in here that I felt, you know, especially having gone and watched the original, like some of the shots that were set up that were supposed to look exactly like the first movie. I actually felt that kind of took away from this movie a little bit. Like I felt
like the opening titles.
Like the opening titles, and then, you know, put him in the same tux.
The same car, the same dress.
The Quiet Riot song, like there's a lot of touchstones for the first film.
But even in the opening titles though, it's the same. It's like the feet dancing in a montage of that. But even with that, Craig Brewer put his own spin on it because they're amid like empty beer cups and like crap on the ground and a keg and they're at a party. So it's like it's a little
and
dirtier
it's gonna go bad.
Naughtier. Anyway, also let me mention real fast, Julianne Hough is very good in this.
Yes.
And I did not know she could act.
She's no Laurie Singer. I gotta say, I didn't think I was gonna miss Laurie Singer until I saw Julianne Hough, but she's fine. Kenny Wormald is good, although here's the weird thing. He has this Boston accent that comes and goes throughout the course of the film, and he's from Boston.
He's actually from Boston. So but it's hard to do it and not sound like you're Mayor Quimby. Seriously.
True. No, I grant it. And when he does it, it's generally, you know, it sounds right, but the emphasis of it kind of comes and goes from scene to scene. Like during the shoot, they couldn't decide how Bostonian he was to sound or something, and they filmed it out of order, so it's just all over the place. But that aside, good dancer, very charismatic. The kid from Rabbit Hole who plays
Miles Teller is the Chris Penn role, and he's very funny.
Good. Yes, he's terrific, and I mean those are tough shoes to fill.
Dennis Quaid was really good.
Dennis Quaid for John Lithgow. Yeah, that's a good trade.
Yeah. I got to give a shout out to my Vanderbilt classmate Kim Dickens as the aunt. She's terrific, as is the guy who plays the uncle,
Ray McKinnon.
Both of them from the show Deadwood, and
even Andy McDowell.
Andy
McDowell for Diane Weiss. This is your trade.
I mean, she's no Diane Weiss.
She's no Diane Weiss, but
she's okay in
this. Let me mention really fast, and then we have to go. The way they get into "Let's Hear It for the Boy" is really cute.
So good.
It's really clever. So I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, we should do numbers. Alonso Duralde, please go first. Matt Atchity.
7.5.
I'm going to give it an 8.3. We all really like Footloose, so we're going to round up. That's an 8 for your average. Please go see it. If you grew up in the 80s, if you are a teenager now, you will like this movie. So go have fun. Take care.
Even straight guys can sit through this.
Thank you.
It's for the whole family. Bye. Have fun.